Hi, I'm Brooke Thompson, Executive Vice President of Government Affairs at Associated Industries of Massachusetts, and I've been in this role since September of 2019. Originally, when I was in law school, I thought I either wanted to be a corporate attorney or I wanted to be a prosecutor. And through my time at Northeastern School of Law, I was able to engage in certain co-ops. And my last co-op happened to be working for the then Senate President, Robert Travellini, in his office over in the legislature, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I had always had a passion for politics and for government, but never really thought that that would translate into a career. And so upon completion of that co-op and finishing law school and passing the bar exam, I decided, well, no better way to get involved in Massachusetts government than to go work at the State House. And so I started out as a low-level legislative aide for a rank and file state rep at the time, and literally just learned how everything worked. And I learned very early that there certainly was a sense that it was a male-dominated profession. It didn't mean that there weren't women like me in similar roles, and it certainly didn't mean that there weren't female leaders in the legislature, but I definitely saw it as more of a boys' club. And so began to try to figure out how I would fit into that. I was no stranger, I would say, to um, strong female leaders. I always have embodied this desire to um, try to be like, try to exemplify what female role models like my mother, but others had shared personality wise. So I really took that on in this role of politics. The reason that I focus so much on leading by example and really helping to elevate women and not tear each other down is I go back to being an adolescent. And as a mother, I see my two daughters going through this now. There's so much emphasis, I think, in society about us being competitive, right? Us trying to achieve more than somebody else. All us women can be great. We don't have to look at each other as competitors. And we're actually better off if we recognize that somebody else might have had different experiences. Somebody else may have had it, let's say, even easier. But why does it help any of us to try to tear each other down? Why don't we act as literally a cheerleader and help our peers, our female peers? Because I really do think that we have so many other things that cause adversity, so many other hurdles to get over. And the last thing we need is to be a hurdle for our friend or, our coworker out there. I remember being a staffer. At this point, I was working as legal counsel for a committee over in the legislature, and I was sitting in the then speaker's office, and a bunch of the policymakers, some elected officials, and the speaker were in the room, and we were having a meeting. And there's a lot of familiarity that happens in these meetings. And I believe one of the lobbyists in the room started to swear. And I was the only female in the room. And the lobbyist turned to me and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Brooke. Please excuse me." Again, I don't think for a moment he thought anything negative about that. But I was immediately aware that I was viewed differently in that room. And he made a point of making sure everybody else in the room knew that I was different. I had to sort of sit there and say, well, how am I going to not let that be a barrier, but in fact, maybe be an opportunity? I had one of two options. I could get upset. I could make me feel like I was different or less than or didn't deserve to be there. Or I could say, this means I need to push harder so that I can be successful in this role. I can ensure that I can mentor other women to come up and be part of politics and government affairs, because the more of us are in this room, the less likely those situations are going to happen, the less likely people are going to feel like we somehow are different. And the best way to do that is be very good at my job, but then move up to a position such that I can help other females who are looking to get into this profession grow and succeed. And that's really what I did. The number one hurdle that keeps young women from pursuing a career in government affairs is that it's a very high stress, high pressure, competitive environment. I think women can thrive very well in those environments, but I think by nature, and I hate saying sweeping things like this, but I think by nature we tend to like to be more collaborative and cooperative. I'm a believer that the more people you have at the table with different perspectives, the better solution you're going to get. It's going to be tough. You're going to have to work your way up. You're going to have to start at the bottom, but it is so rewarding and it is so worth it. And we need more strong female voices at the table when we're talking about something as important as public policy decisions. Again, I go back to how in the world can these elected officials understand the perspective of females if there aren't females in the room? And I certainly feel very passionately that I would like to help younger women pursue this career. Again, it can be daunting, but it's so rewarding and worth it at the end. If I could go back in time, I would try to really counteract that self-doubt as I do now, because it still creeps in. But I think if I had had the self-confidence then, I certainly would have been a much more dynamic individual earlier in my career. And hopefully, again, would have inspired other peers, female peers in particular, to get into government affairs. You conquer it by just that self-talk. Some of the things that I say to myself are, even if you don't believe it, fake it until you make it. You know what I mean? Get up there and do what you have to do. You may be wrong. And I think, again, partially as humans, but particularly as women, we are so hard on ourselves that we cannot make a mistake. We have to be perfect. We have to look perfect. We have to sound perfect. We have to know all the right answers. And the fact is, a lot of our male counterparts aren't focusing on that. They're just standing up and giving it a try. And I certainly think that we have to do the same. So literally on a daily basis, when self-doubt creeps in, I say, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm certainly not going to just mail it in. I'm going to do the work that's necessary. And that's the key balance there. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to do the work. You have to study. You have to know the subject matter. But don't let that fear of failure keep you from standing up and making your point. You have to have that self-talk and believe it. Well, I say to people, even if you don't believe it, say it and fake it, and eventually it'll happen.